There's no campaign to, hey, we got to beat the ratio. And all the weirdos are clicking the like button trying to save Snow White. Like, that doesn't exist. So that makes me think this is towards the bottom.
I think it will be. I don't think there's, again, what's going to be dependent or what is the most important thing for this film is how well can it leg out once it opens. If this thing gets very bad word of mouth, or if the kids aren't interested in going to do repeat viewings like it's Frozen or Moana, then this thing is screwed.
Renegade Online.
There's another movie coming out next month, bro, right? That has a very similar production hell story to Captain America DEI. Does it not?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I hope that you have had the chance to look at the reverse John Boyega poster strategy that Disney has had, but...
Yeah, we got to talk about this because there's some news on this that I want to make people aware of. And for those of you out there that are still stuck on stupid when it comes to this $180 million budget thing, and again, I want to warn folks out there, I'm not putting up with it with these bots out there on X anymore.
Let me start out by saying this: if I offend anybody today, I don't give a shit.
Because here we go, okay? I love Tom Holman. That was today at CPAC, for those of you who don't know. That was today at CPAC. As soon as I saw that, I'm like, that's getting clipped, and that's going in the permanent videos on StreamYard to use at any point. Here we go. I want to remind folks of another movie that got started. This movie, the incorporated entity in the UK, was formed almost 6 years ago now, in 2019. Disney reveals the Snow White remake is set to blow its budget. Let's talk about budget, y'all, because there's still people out there, and when this movie comes out next month from Disney, I might add, people are going to be talking about how the budget for this film was $200 million. Maybe 6 years ago it was. It is not now. And what we do know...
I told you to stop this. I'm going to lose my Lamborghini over this.
I know,
I told you to stop, man.
You said, well, I told my wife my budget for a McLaren F1 is $5,000, so we can play this game too.
Hey, look who's getting it. Look who's getting a car. Let's not look at the bank account later, sweetie.
No. The Rachel Zegler live action, and again, speaking of going down the same DEI chain, going back and mentioning the same corrupt groups at Disney, like Reimagine Tomorrow, and more specifically in this case, the Stories Matter group, who have stated in the past, people that work there have talked about, again, we need to change to 50% of these Disney characters and make them more diverse, which is why we got a black Little Mermaid in 2023. And that's also why that they cast a Latina woman as Snow White instead of just a white German girl to play a white German girl. Because as people at the Story Matters group at Disney and many other like them in the DEI environment is that they look at this as we can make this more diverse and at the same time trick the audience, because somebody like Rachel Zegler with her ethnic background is what this is not Valiant saying it, this is the DEI people say this. Somebody like Rachel Zegler is considered quote-unquote white passing. Again, this is their idea, but what really sank this movie obviously was Rachel Zegler opening her mouth.
That's Pedro Pascal as well.
Yes.
So that's why they cast, people have said this. Folks, we're going to give you a little bit of a lesson here in case you don't know. The reason that Pedro Pascal is in everything is not because he's a great actor.
Nope.
He's in everything because he satisfies the quota. Right? They've got a quota for ancestry. Pedro Pascal is technically not white, but he presents. He's white adjacent.
He's white adjacent. He passes for white. He's white presenting. And it also satisfies, just like this movie will by using Rachel Zegler. When you use Pedro Pascal, if you want to try to get your movie nominated for the top 5, top 10 awards at the Oscars, the Academy Awards, our friends at Film Thread have covered this extensively. We've read it. It's on their website. You can go to the Academy Awards website now, and in order to even be nominated for things like Best Picture, you have to meet a certain diversity quota in your film. So this is why these Hollywood studios, by and large, are also doing this still. DEI, the last person to die on the hill for DEI is going to be Hollywood because they're so whacked out. But it's heartening to see Joy Reid get fired. But let's talk about this. So the budget for this movie, Pro, has been reported at roughly $200 million. I'm not going to go...
That cannot be... I know the budget. The budget was only $5 million. They're fine.
Yeah, here we go. Now, this is back from November. We've covered this months ago. You can go back and watch the full video on it, but this is what I want to remind people about. Snow White is going to be a big fail, just like Captain Falcon or Captain DEI. Now, it may actually perform better, I think, in the theater than Captain Falcon will, again, because it's got that younger family, especially young female audience demographic that's going to gravitate towards this, just like they did for things like Moana and whatnot. Now, not saying this movie's going to do $1 billion, but it would not at all surprise me right now. I'd be kind of shocked to see this movie not actually outperform Captain Falcon. But will it reach the heights, quote unquote, of Little Mermaid? I don't know. 550 million might be where this tops out. We'll see how much Disney really pumps into this. But
that would still be flop territory because at 270, at 270 at the end of 2023, this thing's still been under production and development for all of last year. 270. If you let's just use 2023's numbers, 270 plus let's say 150 for marketing, you're going to get up there where you need about 800 million to break even. And that's before these additions. So there's no way. There's just no way, especially now that we've seen the first weekend forecast. I think they're saying it's going to be 65 to 95. And I think it's going to be towards the low end. I think about 67 is where this is going to land, 67, 70, somewhere around there.
Well, we've got the early projections, and I've got the article from Box Office Pro. I saw you just posted it. I don't know if it's the same one, my long-range forecast for Snow White. We've got the first one from Box Office Pro, but what I want to call to people's attention here is what I just had highlighted. Let me go back to this. You have to understand and look at this through the same lens as we're looking at through Captain America Brave New World. Disney revealed the cost so far. And again, look at the language that Caroline Reed, our friend over here at Forbes Magazine, uses. She did not say the budget. She says the cost. And that is the correct terminology because we're talking about what this company actually has spent to make this film. The cost of making Snow White has ballooned to $270 million US dollars, or a little over 217 British pounds sterling by the end of 2023. That's over a year ago now, and that's before most of the major reshooting and retooling for that movie began. So you can add, when this is all said and done, we've already called this, you can add probably another $1 to $150 million to this turd before it's finished. We're talking about a film with a similar production hell, a very similar reshooting and retooling and re-editing and recolor grading and re-VFXing, okay? Although I'd argue that Snow White maybe took a little bit more VFX because they added in the dwarves when there originally were none. We're talking about something that is probably $400 million. And let's say after they get their film tax credits, they're netting out to maybe somewhere around in the vicinity of, say 325 to 350. Okay, let's be generous. Captain Falcon probably in the same vein. And again, the only reason we don't know why Captain Falcon, we don't have solid numbers on that, it wasn't filmed in the UK. These entities filmed in the UK, these productions filmed in the UK, demand public filings. And if you know how to go find them, that's where we get the numbers from. So again, if Snow White is going to come in, even at a net cost after film tax credits of somewhere in the park of 320 to 350 million, please don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining when it comes to Captain Falcon, because that ain't happening.
Valiant, I've got a way for them to fix this. I know how they can recoup everything for Snow White. They've only got a month left, and I've got the solution. Are you ready for it, sir?
Go for it.
Artificial intelligence is an amazing thing when used for the right purposes. Mm-hmm. I'm here to tell you, Disney, it's not too late. It's time to back to the future this thing with AI. Replace Rachel Zegler with Gal Gadot like it's the Parent Trap. She'll play the Wicked Queen and Snow White. Just artificial intelligence, Gal Gadot's face onto Rachel Zegler's body. Bingo, bango, bongo, boom. By the way, you would hear applause across the nation as soon as the news broke that Gal Gadot would be playing Snow White as well. People would suddenly stand out in the streets and cry out and say, Disney's back on track. $1 billion easy if they do it.
Hey, look, Gal Gadot is a beautiful woman, but she would have to be de-aged some. She doesn't look like she's 16, okay?
She's stunning and brave, Valiant. She's stunning and brave.
She's stunning and brave. Long-range forecast. Disney goes back to the beginning with Snow White remake.
What does that even mean? Oh, back to the beginning of the movie. Okay. Not projecting back to the beginning in terms of how much money they'll make. That's good. That's good.
No, well, actually, no, I think they might be right. I think they're going back to the beginning in the sense that they probably expect to have a box office haul the same as they did in 1937 for the original, just without any inflation adjustment. So if we calculate about a nickel per movie ticket, we'll come up with what they'll make for this one. Domestic opening weekend range, 65 to 85 million. So we already have an opening. And I want to remind folks that Box Office Pro, about a month before the release of Captain Falcon DEI, they were pretty much right in there. They were pretty much, if memory serves, on the money with Captain Falcon's box office. So give them some credit here. And if anything, as I've stated before, if anything, in the past, I've found Box Office Pro tends to be a little on the high side, which would be horrible. So we're talking about 65 to 85 million as the initial tracking for Snow White that opens here in about 4 weeks. I think March 21st, if I'm not mistaken. So about almost 4 weeks from now.
Which means the Barbie crowd isn't coming.
No.
So that's gone.
No. And again, when we're talking about major entries like, Deadpool and Wolverine that opened at 438 million. That was 3 days for Deadpool and Wolverine. It's been 10 days for Captain Falcon, and it's not even crossed 300 million yet. This is how bad things.
It may never reach 438.
No, I don't think it will. But this is where we are for Snow White. Now, I will caution folks that my initial gut reaction is that the international box office for this collectively, cumulatively, across all territories, of course, minus China, because I don't think they're going to care, I think is going to be stronger. I think we're going to see, although not quite as high as a Mufasa kind of thing, where you've got 2-1 in favor internationally. I think it's going to drift more towards that level. We're going to have I think a greater than 5 or 10% split, something like not 55, might have 60-40 favoring international for this, maybe higher. The higher that gets, considering the domestic performance, I think the bigger the trouble is for Snow White. As it stands right now, I think it's going to
skew Chinese. That's what's strange about this. For whatever reason, China loves the fable of Snow White. For whatever reason.
Okay, you may know more than I do with the park information. So
if it goes to China, though, here's the thing. Like, if there's a higher percentage of the international that's Chinese box office, then that's not good for Disney, because China sends back about 20% of the entire box office revenue back to an American studio, right?
25, yeah.
Funny how that communist stuff works. If it skews that way, we'll get big numbers out of the media, right? They'll say, oh, the international is so huge. And then in reality, it just doesn't do anything for you if you're big in Beijing, right? The middle kingdom gives you the middle finger, no matter how much money or how little money you make over there. So looking at this, folks, I'd say 65 to 85 million. That's right in line with what I was expecting, Valiant. I was thinking 67 to 72, and I'm leaning more towards 67 simply because the downvotes don't stop. Every trailer that comes out. And the thing about it, too, is like you could have a flood of downvotes, and that's one thing.
Yeah.
The more problematic thing is there's not a response. There's no counter to it. There's no campaign to, hey, we got to beat the ratio. And all the weirdos are clicking the like button trying to save Snow White. Like, that doesn't exist. So that makes me think this is towards the bottom.
I think it will be. I don't think there's, again, what's going to be dependent or what is the most important thing for this film is how well can it leg out once it opens. If this thing gets very bad word of mouth, or if the kids aren't interested in going to do repeat viewings like it's Frozen or Moana, then this thing is screwed. I think the most concerning, or should be the most concerning from Disney, is something that I have mentioned countless times. I'll remind everybody again. The fact of the matter is, in the modern era, Ariel, the Little Mermaid, was a far more popular character than Snow White. Snow White was big, even for little girls at this day and age. But Ariel always drew a bigger crowd. Every time I went to Disney, I remember when my kids wanted to go, they were much more interested in seeing Ariel than Snow White. Ariel's always been a bigger merch seller than Snow White in the last 20 to 30 years. And if the remake of The Little Mermaid couldn't break much past $500 million, again, in the same year that Barbie came out and did $1.50, literally nearly 3 times as much as The Little Mermaid, I don't know. It's very hard to get a beat on where this is going to go, but we'll find out soon enough. But
here's a question for you, Valiant.
Yeah.
So one of the things I've been paying very close attention to is sort of the propaganda, the misinformation that we see coming out of the legacy media. Mm-hmm. They are hesitant and reticent to admit that any of these movies have failed. ever.
Yeah.
And I wonder, do you think that that the new media, so we're talking about Valiant Renegade now, right? So do you think that the pressure is building on the trades outside of Caroline Reed, who she gets it right every time?
Yep.
Do you think the pressure is building on them to report this accurately and honestly now, given that if you look at what they'll, like, for example, Deadline, Variety, what have you, THR, they'll post an article and then they'll put it on X, right? They put the link to X. And if you go through and you look at the responses on X, it's like 80% of the people now know the lingo that you have been proselytizing now for years, right? They'll know cost versus budget. They'll know what the overspend is. They'll know what the break even is. They know that it's 50% that comes back to the studio after the theaters and taxes. Like, everybody knows this now, and they just hammer these people. So I wonder, do you think we're reaching a break-even point in terms of the way the industry covers this?
I would like to think so. I'd like to think there's going to be more people out there. The problem is that Disney is, in my opinion, they're probably spending money, just like we know they have in the past, right? They pay Disney shills. They bring them to parks. They give them perks. They do things, or they set up fake accounts through marketing arms. And again, like we talked about at the top of the show, we get stuff like this. Marvel updates. It makes it look like it's not really official, but it's probably in the shill family for Disney. Captain America: Brave New World has grossed $289 million. The film has a budget of $180. And then Captain America news: Brave New World has reached $289 million. The film has a production budget of $189. I mean, this is all over X. It's deliberately out there to try to reach the lowest common denominator of normie out there. And in that regard, I don't mean that as an insult, but what I'm trying to get across is 99% of people out there, including a lot of the folks that call in on these earnings calls on Wall Street, they have no idea how this revenue and cost system works for film production. I think they most of them either have the wrong idea or they have no idea, and they see numbers and they go, oh, well, this was the biggest movie of February. Okay, and they keep seeing this number repeated. Well, it only cost them $189 million or $180 million. And the movie's already made $289. That means Disney's made $109 million. So we're okay. Right? In their brain, because they don't understand how this business works, I think in many cases, they are deliberately con-jobbed with posts like this from shill accounts, bot accounts, again, maybe, possibly, theoretically run by Disney itself. And this is what you're left with. Things that people just don't understand and are deliberately gaslit. So Disney can look like they're having success when they're actually only enjoying currently failure.
Box office updates brought to you by USAID and Pixie Dusted Cupcakes.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.